October, 1933, Kansas Prairie. The late afternoon sun casts long copper shadows over the flatlands. A farmer named Eli Thompson wipes dust from his eyes as he guides a plow across a fallow wheat field. It is the height of the Dust Bowl, and for weeks, a hot wind has peeled away the topsoil, uncovering secrets long buried in the plains. Eli's plow strikes something hard. Cursing under his breath, he kneels in the cracked earth. There, half revealed by his blade, lies a tiny human skull, and another beside it, two child-sized skulls, pale and fragile, grinning up through the dust. Eli's heart kicks in his chest. By sundown, the local sheriff and a handful of old-timers gather at the site. They exhume a tangle of small bones and scraps of tattered fabric. One elder, a gray-haired woman with tears in her eyes, whispers a name almost no one remembers. The Orphan train. A chill falls over the group despite the warm, dry air. Word spreads quietly through the county. The old ghost story about missing children on the prairie wasn't just a story after all. Some years earlier, New York City, spring of 1888. Midnight rain washes the grime of the city streets into shining black rivulets. In a narrow alley behind the Children's Aid Society home on Elizabeth Street, 14-year-old Nora Hurley huddles with her little brother Sam beneath the eaves. She wraps her threadbare shawl tightly around Sam's thin shoulders. Tonight is their last night in New York. Beyond the alley, the great city roars on, carriage wheels splashing through puddles, distant tugboat horns on the East River, a chorus of stray dogs barking at the moon. Nora presses her cheek to the top of Sam's head as he shivers. She tells him everything will be better out west. She tells herself the same, fighting back her own fear of the unknown. In her pocket, she carries a folded handbill given by the matron. Wanted. Homes for destitute children. A company of 36 orphans from New York to arrive in Kansas. She doesn't know where Kansas is, only that it's far away, a blank spot on her mental map beyond the Great Plains. Above them, a window opens. Mrs. Margaret Flanagan, the orphanage matron, leans out into the rain. "Nora, get Sam inside, child. You'll both catch your death out there." Her voice is firm, but not unkind. Mrs. Flanagan has a face as creased as a walnut, tough from years of handling hard luck cases, but her eyes soften at the siblings. Inside the dormitory, lamps cast a dim amber glow over rows of iron cots where dozens of children stir in their sleep. The air smells of damp wool and lye soap. Nora helps Sam out of his wet shoes and tucks him into her cot for warmth. Neither can really sleep. They know that at first light, they will board a train bound for the unknown. One of the many orphan trains carrying children from the crowded eastern cities to new homes in the rural heartland. Nora has heard the whispers among the older girls. "We're being shipped off like cattle," one had said, eyes flashing with anger. "Out west, they need farmhands more than they care about us." Another retorted that at least on a farm they'd eat fresh bread instead of garbage scraps. Mrs. Flanagan caught wind of the talk and clapped her hands for silence. "Mind your tongues. This is a chance for a better life. You'll have families. You'll have a place to belong." Privately, Nora isn't sure what to believe. She has seen newspaper clippings, scathing headlines like "Babies sold like sheep," warning that charities have been shipping children in carloads all over the country, given away and sold like cattle. But what choice do they have? After their ma died of consumption last winter in their tenement and Da fell into the bottle and disappeared, there was no family left to take Nora and Sam in. The streets nearly swallowed them, days and nights begging by storefronts, hiding from truant officers. When the Children's Aid Society agent found them, half-starved and sleeping in a doorway, he promised them food, shelter, and that people in the West were waiting eagerly to adopt little ones like Sam. Nora had clutched Sam's hand and agreed to go. Whatever awaits out on the plains, she vowed silently, I will keep Sammy safe. At dawn, the rain clears. May 1st, 1888. Under a crisp blue sky, the 36 children line up 2 by 2 outside the brick orphanage, each clutching a small bundle of possessions. They wear donated clothes. Not new, but clean and mended. The boys sport newsboy caps and short trousers. The girls wear plain calico dresses and ribboned bonnets. A few children even smile, caught up in the excitement of a journey. Little Sam, only 8, tries to put on a brave face for Nora, but she feels him trembling. Mrs. Flanagan and 2 other attendants herd them into horse-drawn omnibuses that rattle across Manhattan's cobbled streets toward the railroad station. Nora catches her breath as the imposing silhouette of Grand Central Depot looms ahead, its iron and glass train shed arching over numerous tracks. Porters in uniform hustle about, loading luggage and shouting commands. The locomotive that will haul them west emits a piercing whistle and belch of steam, as if impatient. On the platform, a tall, sandy-haired man in a frayed suit waits with a stack of tickets. This is Mr. Henry Carson, the placing agent for the Children's Aid Society. He is younger than Nora expected, perhaps only in his early 30s, with an earnest, wind-reddened face and wire-rimmed spectacles. Despite the early hour, Carson appears energetic, checking names off a ledger as Mrs. Flanagan leads each child forward. 36 young ones bound for new homes in Kansas, he remarks to a railroad conductor who pauses nearby. Remarkable, isn't it? God willing, each will find a loving family. The conductor simply nods while chewing on tobacco. To him, this is just one more odd cargo among many. Mr. Carson addresses the children in a clear voice above the platform din. Boys and girls, stay together now. We have a long journey ahead, New York to Chicago, then on to Kansas. Mind Mrs. Flanagan and myself at all times. Older ones, look after the younger. And remember, this journey is a blessing. There are families out west who can't wait to welcome you. Nora notices he avoids calling them orphans. Perhaps he thinks it a cruel word. He speaks with such conviction that some of Nora's own apprehension eases. She squeezes Sam's hand as they step forward to board. They clamber into a third-class coach near the rear of the train. It's a basic car with wooden benches and a potbelly stove on one end. The children fill nearly every seat. Above, the clear story windows let in beams of morning sun carrying motes of dust. Mrs. Flanagan bustles about, seating siblings together and scolding a few rowdy boys into place. Nora and Sam squeeze onto a bench beside a quiet girl named Polly, who is 7. Polly has been clinging to Nora's free arm ever since the omnibus ride. Having decided Nora looks enough like a big sister to trust. With a lurch and the clank of couplings, the train begins to move. Sam cranes his neck to see out the soot-streaked window. As the locomotive picks up speed, the brick canyons of Manhattan glide past and then disappear into the smoky gloom of a tunnel. Some younger children whimper at the darkness and roar around them, but soon they emerge on the other side of the river. Nora glimpses a last slice of New York, the receding skyline of church steeples and tenements, before it vanishes behind them. For better or worse, they are truly leaving home. The day's journey is a blur of new sights. The train chugs through the industrial underbelly of New Jersey, past factories belching black smoke. By mid-morning, the children gasp as they cross the wide Delaware River, sunlight dancing on the water far below the trestle. Mr. Carson walks the aisle, distributing bread rolls and apples saved from the orphanage kitchen. "Eat up. We've many miles to go," he says cheerfully. Mrs. Flanagan leads a few of the children in a gentle hymn to lift spirits, and soon most join in, a chorus of thin, earnest voices mixing with the steady clack-clack of the rails. Nora chews her bread and watches Sam press his nose to the glass. He points excitedly at a herd of cows grazing in a meadow. Actual cows, not the scrawny, sooty goats that wandered their city alleys. To him, the passing countryside is like a storybook come to life. Nora musters a smile for his sake and nods. "Just imagine, Sammy. Maybe the family that takes us in will have a cow or two." Sam's eyes widen. "And a horse? I want to see a horse up close." The little girl Polly on Nora's other side chimes in softly. "I hope they have a rocking chair. I miss sitting in my mama's lap in a rocking chair." Nora pats Polly's hand and swallows the lump in her throat. Everyone on this train has lost something, she realizes. A parent, a home, a sense of safety. They are all hoping to find those things again at the end of the line. By afternoon, the train stops in Philadelphia to take on more coal and water. The children are allowed onto the platform under close watch. The station is bustling and grand. Passengers gawk momentarily at the odd parade of orphans stretching their legs. Two well-dressed ladies approach Mr. Carson and Mrs. Flanagan, asking questions with curious, pitying expressions. Nora overhears snippets. "Truly admirable saving these poor children," and "Are they all really orphans?" Mr. Carson explains the Children's Aid Society's work, how over 200,000 destitute children from eastern cities have been sent west since 1854. Many were indeed orphans, he says, but others, like Nora and Sam, had parents who, for one tragic reason or another, could not care for them. "We place them with good Christian families on farms and in small towns where healthy country living can do wonders," he adds. "Most of the children thrive out here. Better than in the slums of New York, certainly." The ladies nod approvingly, and one presses a coin into his hand as a donation. Not everyone in the station is sympathetic. Nora notices a pair of rail workers leaning against a freight cart, sneering. One spits tobacco juice near Polly's feet, making the girl jump back. "Whole lot of street rats, if you ask me," he drawls to his companion, loud enough for Nora to hear. "Ship 'em out like cheap merchandise. Wonder how many just run off into worse." His friend chuckles. "Heard of one bunch that vanished off a train down in Texas. Bet they up and bolted first chance." Nora feels anger flare hot in her chest, but Mrs. Flanagan shoots the men a scalding glare and shepherds the children back on board before any of them can dwell on those words. Still, as the train pulls out of Philadelphia, Nora cannot shake the workers' mocking tone. Vanished off a train, up and bolted. She resolves not to let Sam out of her sight, not even for a moment. That evening, the orphan train skirts the green fields of Pennsylvania. The sun sets in a blaze of pink and gold over rolling hills. Inside the rail car, the children grow restless and tired. Mr. Carson decides it's an appropriate time to tell them what to expect when they arrive. He stands at the front of the swaying car, holding on to a seat back for balance. "Listen up, children. In a few days when we get to Kansas, there will be folks eager to meet you. We'll likely hold a gathering at a local church or town hall. You'll all line up smartly on a stage, just as we practiced back in New York. Don't be afraid. These people have already applied to take in a child. They'll be looking for a son or daughter to raise." He smiles, making eye contact with the older ones. Remember your manners. Say yes, sir, and no, ma'am. Show them you're good, worthy children. If a family chooses you and Mr. Carson or Mrs. Flanagan approves, you might go home with them that very day. The younger kids buzz with nervous excitement at this, while a few older faces show worry. Nora's stomach knots. The idea of being examined and picked like a servant at a hiring fair or a puppy at market makes her palms sweat. She unconsciously wraps an arm around Sam, who yawns and leans into her. One of the boys, Charlie, a lanky 12-year-old with sharp eyes, raises his hand. What if nobody picks us? He asks bluntly. A hush falls. It's the question none of them wanted to voice. Mr. Carson clears his throat. If any children are not placed at our first stop, we will move on to the next town and try again. I have several stops planned in Kansas and Nebraska if necessary. Rest assured, we'll do our utmost to find a good home for each and every one of you. His tone is confident, but Nora senses an undercurrent of concern in the agent's face as he turns away. Mrs. Flanagan quickly interjects with a distraction. All right, enough chatter. Time for evening prayers and then sleep. We've got an early start tomorrow. She begins leading an old lullaby-like hymn. Voice quavering, but gentle. And gradually, the children settle. Nora doesn't sleep easily. The bench is hard and the sounds of the train, the wheels' ceaseless grinding, the occasional whoosh of the whistle, keep dragging her back from the edge of dreams. Sometime after midnight, as they clickety-clack through rural Ohio, she gives up on rest. Careful not to disturb Sam, whose head is in her lap, Nora gazes out at the darkness beyond the window. The moonlight reveals endless fields and flickers of farmhouses with oil lamps glowing faintly. Everything is so vast and quiet compared to the city. It's then, in the reflection of the glass, Nora sees the matron's face behind her, troubled and awake. Mrs. Flanagan offers Nora a taut smile, then whispers, "You all right, dear?" Nora nods. Then after a moment, she asks the question that's been gnawing at her. "Mrs. Flanagan, is it true some children run away on these trips? That some disappear?" She can barely voice the last word. The older woman's eyes flash with an emotion. Was it fear? Before she looks away. "You mustn't fret about gossip." But after a pause, she sighs and sits beside Nora, lowering her voice so only Nora hears. "In all my years doing this, I've never lost a child. Not one. Mr. Carson and I take our duty seriously. Yes, a few might try to slip off. Older boys sometimes thinking they can fend for themselves. But we watch them close." She pats Nora's hand. "We'll watch over you all, every mile to Kansas." Nora wants to believe her. She closes her eyes and finally drifts into a shallow, uneasy sleep to the rhythm of wheels on rails and Mrs. Flanagan humming softly an old Irish tune. The next day passes without incident. They change trains in Chicago, transferring to a westbound line. The brief stop in Chicago is overwhelming. The great Union Station terminal teems with travelers, and the children huddled together under the echoing iron rafters. Mr. Carson treats them to a simple meal of sandwiches purchased from a station vendor, a rare treat. Nora notices Sam carefully wrapping half of his sandwich in a scrap of paper to save for later. Old habits from hunger die hard. By evening, they're on their way again, steaming out across the flat expanses of Illinois. The landscape has changed. Gone are the dense eastern towns. Here the horizon opens wide under a huge sky. Rows of corn flash by, and now and then solitary farmhouses dot the land. On the second night, something unsettling occurs. The Orphan train stops to take on water at a remote tank station in western Illinois. It's well past midnight, and the station is barely more than a wind-swept platform with a water tower and a single oil lamp burning. Most of the children are asleep or dozing. Nora, half awake, hears the conductor and engineer conversing in low tones outside, their boots crunching the gravel. She catches a fragment through the open window. Storm ahead. Might delay us. Better wire ahead from Quincy. Then, unexpectedly, the train jerks and lurches. Not forward, but a jarring bump backward, as if something struck the car. Children wake and cry out in alarm. Nora wraps both arms around Sam and Polly as Mrs. Flanagan stumbles to her feet, calling, "Stay calm! It's all right!" Mr. Carson swings down from his sleeping berth at the front, pulling on his coat. He rushes out onto the platform to see what's happened. Through the window, Nora can make out lantern lights swaying in the darkness and a few men's figures. The engine releases a hiss of steam. After a tense few minutes, Carson re-enters, face grim, yet attempting a reassuring smile. "All is well," he announces. "Just a coupling issue. One of the pins between cars wasn't secured and we had a jolt. No harm done." Nora notices he avoids meeting her eyes. In truth, the last coach of the train, their coach, had partially disconnected for a moment. If the train had been moving at full speed, it might have been disastrous. A whisper of panic ripples among the older children as they realize how narrowly they avoided being stranded or worse. Mrs. Flanagan quickly leads another prayer of thanks for safety. Outside, the engineer tosses extra coal into the fire, and with a loud chuff, the train presses on into the prairie night. Nora keeps a vigil at the window for another hour, nerves on edge. Did someone tamper with the coupling on purpose? Or was it truly an accident? In the wavering lamplight, she thought she saw a shadowy figure at the rear of the car just after the lurch. But perhaps it was only the brakeman doing his job. Eventually, fatigue overtakes her, and she sleeps. By dawn of the third day, the Orphan train has crossed the Mississippi River and entered the vast state of Missouri. In the morning light, Mr. Carson is back to his optimistic self, telling the children they'll reach Kansas by tonight or tomorrow. He has them practice lining up and introducing themselves, a sort of rehearsal for the adoption event. It becomes a game of make-believe to pass the hours. One by one, each child stands and says, "Good day, my name is Brimay. I am 3 years old, and I would be a good son, daughter, because Some are shy, others ham it up to laughter and applause from their peers. When it's Charlie's turn, the bold boy who earlier asked what if no one chooses them, he smirks and says, "Name's Charles. I can work real hard and I don't steal chickens like some might." The children erupt in giggles. Even Carson stifles a chuckle and gently corrects him to perhaps mention liking school instead. Nora watches Sam muster the courage to stand and squeak out, "My name is Samuel. I'm 8, and I will be real good and help with chores." She gives him an encouraging nod, and he beams, clearly relieved to be done. When Nora's turn comes, her throat tightens. What can she say? She's almost grown at 14. Many families prefer younger kids. And unlike little Sam, who still has a spark of innocence, Nora feels older than her years. Yet she forces herself up. My name is Nora. I'm 14 years old. I promise I can be helpful in the house. I can sew, cook a little, and read to the younger children. I would be very grateful to become part of a family." Her voice wavers only slightly. Mr. Carson offers an approving smile. Perhaps, Nora dares to hope, there truly will be a family for them both. They roll into St. Louis in the late afternoon under cloudy skies. Here they change trains one final time onto the Kansas Pacific Line. The station is chaotic, with trains bound for Texas, Colorado, and Chicago, all belching smoke. As the children are led across busy platforms, a few cover their ears at the hissing steam and grinding metal. Nora holds tight to Sam with one hand and keeps the other on little Polly's shoulder. Amid the throngs, a strange man approaches Mr. Carson. He's dressed in a neat black suit despite the heat and introduces himself with a tip of a bowler hat. Carson looks taken aback, but then nods cordially. He quickly gathers Mrs. Flanagan, and together they speak with the man in low tones a few paces off, glancing occasionally at the children. Nora notices the man's eyes, pale gray, sharp as a hawk's, scanning over them. He smiles thinly when his gaze meets Nora's for an instant. A prickle of unease runs down her neck. Something about him feels off, though she can't pinpoint why. Perhaps it's the way his smile doesn't reach those cold eyes. After a minute, Mr. Carson calls out, "Children, this gentleman is Dr. Gerald Thompson. He's a physician who works with the Children's Aid Society out here. He's traveling on the same train to Kansas and has kindly offered to ride in our car in case any of you feel unwell or need medical care." The children stare silently. A few murmur polite hellos. Dr. Thompson doffs his hat briefly. "A pleasure to meet you, young folks," he says in a smooth, practiced voice. He sets down a leather valise that clinks with what sound like glass vials. Mrs. Flanagan's expression is neutral, but Nora can tell she's wary. Carson, however, seems relieved to have extra help. The truth is, a couple of the smaller children have been coughing since yesterday, likely just colds, but the agent worries about any illness spreading. In the close quarters of the Orphan trains, sickness could race through the ranks. Indeed, behind his confident demeanor, Carson recalls grim tales of past journeys where measles or flux claimed young lives en route, a dark secret often hushed up so the Orphan train program's reputation wouldn't be tarnished. He has no reason to doubt Dr. Thompson's credentials. The man carried a letter of introduction from a New York acquaintance, or so he said. Carson decides any friend of the society is welcome. They all board the final leg, westbound into Kansas. The sun sets as they cross the Missouri-Kansas line. The coach lamps flicker on, casting long shadows. Dr. Thompson moves among the benches, introducing himself more personally. He checks the forehead of a boy who sniffles, offers cough syrup from his bag to another, and in general performs small kindnesses that put the children at ease. When one frightened toddler begins to wail inconsolably for her missing mother, the doctor produces a peppermint drop from his coat pocket, winning her trust. To most, Dr. Thompson seems a godsend. Even Mrs. Flanagan softens after he assures her he once worked at a children's hospital in Boston. Nora, however, remains unconvinced. She observes the doctor quietly. Sometimes, when he thinks no one's watching, a strange hardness settles on his face, a look of calculation. And once, she catches him staring at Sam, who has dozed off with his head in Nora's lap, with an intensity that made her instinctively pull her brother closer. That night, clouds blot out the moon, and the prairie is ink dark. The train's headlamp barely illuminates the tracks beyond, as if the world outside their rattling sanctuary has ceased to exist. The children sleep fitfully. In the middle of the night, Nora awakens to a faint metallic taste in her mouth and a sense of nausea. Around her, a couple of others stir, groaning. The oil lamp light seems to waver oddly. She looks across the aisle and sees Charlie, the bold boy, vomit suddenly onto the floor. Mrs. Flanagan is up at once, and so is Dr. Thompson. The doctor quickly takes charge, his voice calm but urgent. "Likely something they ate? Food poisoning, perhaps?" he says, checking Charlie's pulse. Another child, the little girl Polly, starts retching next. And Nora's own stomach churns violently. She barely manages to lean out the window before sickness overtakes her. Fear grips her heart. Is this an outbreak of cholera? Typhoid? She knows those names only as death sentences whispered about in slums. By dawn, fully half the children are ill with vomiting or diarrhea, including Sam. Sam lies pale and listless against Nora. She wipes his brow with her sleeve, trying not to tremble. Mr. Carson's face is drawn tight with worry as he confers with Dr. Thompson. The train creeps across the Kansas prairie under a sickly gray morning sky. They were supposed to reach the town of Concordia, Kansas by midday, where families eagerly awaited them. But it's clear many of the children are too sick to present at any adoption gathering. Carson faces a terrible choice. Dr. Thompson, seemingly decisive and altruistic, proposes a solution. "We must quarantine the sick ones. I know a place a few miles off where I can tend to them, an old mission house near a small siding stop. The healthy children can continue on to Concordia with you, Mr. Carson, to meet the families. Once these here recover in a few days, I'll bring them along." Mrs. Flanagan immediately bristles. "Leave half the children behind? I won't hear of it," she snaps. But the doctor speaks softly, reasonably. "Ma'am, if we bring these ill children into town, we risk infecting others. And the journey's clearly worsening their condition. I have basic medicines and can care for them in isolation. It's for their safety as well as the others. You can take the healthy children on, and perhaps even place some, easing the burden. Yes?" Nora, eavesdropping from Sam's side, feels a chill. The plan makes sense on its face, but something in her gut twists with dread at the thought of splitting up their group. She knows in her bones, if she lets Sam out of her sight now, she may never see him again. Sam is sick, not gravely, she hopes, but he needs care. She won't abandon him. Summoning courage, Nora speaks up, voice hoarse. "Sir, beg pardon. I'll go wherever my brother goes." Mr. Carson turns to her, startled as if remembering she's there. Dr. Thompson gives one of his thin smiles. "Of course, young lady. Siblings should stay together." He looks around at the wan, sweating faces of the sick orphans. "We'll take about 18 of them. The worst cases." He points to the rear half of the carriage where the moans are loudest. Indeed, nearly all in that section, plus a few others like Sam near Nora, are ill. Carson's hands tremble on the brim of his hat. He is torn. He has the responsibility to all 36, but also to the eager townsfolk awaiting their arrival. Perhaps he thinks if some children still arrive healthy, the event can proceed in part, and the rest can follow later. He nods reluctantly. "All right, we'll stop at the next siding. Broughton, I believe it's called. And let you off with them, Doctor." He looks pleadingly at Mrs. Flanagan. "Margaret, would you accompany Dr. Thompson and the children? I'll go on to Concordia with the others and arrange accommodations. I'll telegraph for a local physician to come assist you as well." Mrs. Flanagan's eyes widen. She clearly doesn't like this at all, but the children's pitiful state sways her. "Yes, of course I will," she says, voice stiff. She grips Carson's arm. "Henry, promise me you'll send that doctor quick, and maybe a couple of strong men, too. We may need help nursing so many." Carson pats her hand. "I will, I swear it." Nora feels a wash of relief that Mrs. Flanagan, tough, no-nonsense, caring Mrs. Flanagan, will be with them. It steadies her nerves a little. She gathers their scant belongings and keeps Sam bundled in a blanket. Sam's eyes flutter open, dull with fever. "Nora, I want to go home," he mumbles in confusion. Nora hushes him gently. "I'm here, Sammy. We're going to get you well, I promise." The train screeches to a halt at Broughton Siding, little more than a water tower and a cattle pen, with a dirt road trailing off toward a cluster of buildings on the horizon. The air smells of rain on dry earth. Thunderheads gather to the west, promising a storm. One by one, the sick children are helped off. It's a sorry procession. Some stumble weakly, others have to be carried. Dr. Thompson is brisk and commanding, directing a few railroad hands to assist. Nora half-carries Sam, while supporting Polly as well. The healthy children peer from the windows, faces full of fear and farewell. Charlie, who, despite his stomach upset earlier, recovered and remains on the train, suddenly bolts to his feet and clambers off down I'm not staying without them, he insists defiantly, despite Carson's protest that he's well enough to continue. Charlie just shakes his head. Perhaps he can't bear the idea of not knowing what becomes of his friends. Finally, about 18 children and Mrs. Flanagan stand on the barren ground of Broughton Siding, while Mr. Carson, with clear misgivings, waves from the coach. The engineer toots the whistle. They can't afford to miss the schedule into Concordia. Nora will never forget the image. The Orphan train pulling away in a gust of steam and cinders, taking half their number with it and leaving them behind in the vast emptiness. Sam, semi-conscious, doesn't even register it. But Nora feels a sudden, irrational urge to run after it. She bites it back. She must be strong for Sam and Polly and the others left here. At least they are not alone. They have Mrs. Flanagan and Dr. Thompson. The doctor wastes no time. "The mission house isn't far," he says, pointing toward a dusty track leading over a gentle rise. In the distance, partly obscured by waving prairie grasses, stand a few old structures, a church steeple, maybe a small schoolhouse or outbuildings. It was an old Jesuit mission, abandoned now, but still standing. I've used it before as a temporary clinic. He and Mrs. Flanagan organize the children, and they begin trudging down the road. The sun has risen higher, and with it, the temperature. Humidity hangs in the air as the thunderheads slowly roll closer. Nora carries Sam piggyback. Polly follows, holding on to Nora's skirt, whimpering that her stomach hurts. A boy of 10, Hector, staggers and nearly collapses, but Charlie, tough Charlie, picks up the slack, hoisting Hector's arm over his shoulder. Mrs. Flanagan carries her carpet bag of supplies and leads 2 toddlers by the hand. Dr. Thompson comes last, urging them on, eyes glinting with some inner urgency. They reach the mission grounds after what feels like an eternity, but is perhaps only half an hour. The place is eerily quiet. Weeds and buffalo grass have reclaimed much of it. The main building is a low dormitory of weathered wood, windows boarded or broken. The small church nearby has a crumbling bell tower. It's clearly been deserted for years, likely since the Indian tribes in this area were relocated or the mission closed. A few blackened timbers indicate part of the site caught fire at some point. Nora hears Mrs. Flanagan mutter, "Saints, preserve us," under her breath at the state of things. Inside the old dormitory building, it's cooler, and thankfully furnished with some cots and benches left behind by whoever last used the place. Dust motes swirl as they push open the door and let in light. The children are too exhausted or ill to care about the surroundings. They immediately collapse onto the available cots and pallets that Dr. Thompson and Mrs. Flanagan hastily arrange. The matron, sweating and breathless, nonetheless moves with efficiency, propping up heads, doling out water from a rain barrel out back, wiping faces with her apron. Nora tends to Sam, who lies glassy-eyed and murmuring in fever. She uses a rag dipped in cool water to sponge his face. "Nora, don't leave," he pleads faintly. I won't, Sammy. I'm right here. Polly, curled on the next cot, suddenly starts crying for her mother. Her thin wails echo in the sparsely furnished hall. Nora's heart twists. She begins to softly sing the lullaby Mrs. Flanagan often used, the one about an Irish meadow, and Polly calms a little. Meanwhile, Dr. Thompson sets up a sort of station at a long wooden table. Nora sees him unload several small bottles, a syringe, and cloth strips. He calls for the oldest children, Nora and Charlie, to assist him. We'll need to administer laudanum to ease pain and help them rest, he says, drawing a brown tincture into the syringe. Mrs. Flanagan observes warily. Laudanum? That's opium. I don't want them drugged senseless, she objects. The doctor frowns. Madam, these children are in great distress. Small doses will do more good than harm. Perhaps you'd rather they cry out until that other doctor arrives days from now? His tone is edged with irritation. Mrs. Flanagan purses her lips but relents. Fine, but I'll keep track of who gets what. She stations herself by his elbow to watch the amounts. Nora helps hold a trembling boy still as Dr. Thompson administers a measure of laudanum to him. The boy soon relaxes, eyelids drooping. One by one, the most agitated or in-pain kids are dosed. A heavy, drowsy pall falls over the ward as the children either sleep or stare in stupor. Even Nora, who took only a sip of tonic for her nausea, feels an oppressive fatigue and has to shake herself to stay alert. Mrs. Flanagan, running ragged, tending to a child with fever in the corner, doesn't notice as Dr. Thompson quietly slips the syringe back into his bag and locks it with a click. Nora hears that, the metal clasp snapping shut, and her unease flares again. Why did that detail bother her? She can't say. The afternoon wears on. Outside, the sky darkens to an iron gray, and thunder rumbles. Through the broken windows, a rising wind sets the prairie grass thrashing. A storm is imminent. Dr. Thompson lights a lantern and places it on the table, casting long shadows in the corners of the room. The children mostly sleep or lie limp. The doctor occasionally goes cot to cot, feeling pulses with a frown or checking pupils. Nora notices he's particularly interested in the older boys. There are a few around 10-12, like Charlie, Hector, and another named James. Nora's protective instinct senses something. Dr. Thompson seems to be evaluating them as if deciding something in his mind. As she mulls this, lightning flashes and a tremendous crack of thunder explodes overhead. Several children jolt awake, wailing in terror. Rain begins to pound on the roof in torrents. A leak springs above, dripping onto the floor in a steady tap. Mrs. Flanagan crosses herself, then sets about comforting the frightened little ones, assuring them it's just a storm. Nora does the same with Polly and Sam, who have woken. Sam's fever seems a bit lower, but he's weak. He clings to Nora's arm with surprising strength. Suddenly, amid the thunder's din, there is a new sound. The crunch of wheels and horses outside. Nora, Charlie, and Mrs. Flanagan all look up at once. Through the open door, they see two horse-drawn wagons arriving, lanterns hanging from their bows. Three men jump down into the mud. They are rough-looking fellows dressed in oilskin coats and wide-brim hats. Lightning reveals the gleam of a rifle slung on one wagon. Mrs. Flanagan hurries to the doorway, uncertainty and hope on her face. Praise be. Is that Dr. Miller from town? She calls out, thinking perhaps Carson managed to send help quickly. Dr. Thompson strides past her, stepping out onto the porch to meet the men. The rain slicks his black hair to his skull. The other men approach him, one shaking his hand. They speak in low tones that don't carry over the storm. Mrs. Flanagan's smile falters. Who Who are they? She asks Nora quietly. Nora feels Sam squeeze her hand tighter. He too senses something is wrong. Dr. Thompson turns and gestures for Mrs. Flanagan to join him outside. Ma'am, could you assist us? The men have brought food and additional supplies from town, but we need help unloading. The matron hesitates. She does want to believe help has arrived. It's plausible. Carson got a message to Concordia, and these could be locals coming to aid. With a last glance at Nora, almost an instinctual plea to watch over the children, Mrs. Flanagan steps out into the rain. Nora bites her lip. Raindrops blow in, spattering the threshold. Outside, one of the strangers, a burly man with a thick mustache, tips his hat to Mrs. Flanagan. Another, lanky and pale, climbs back onto a wagon and tosses a heavy sack down. Dr. Thompson says something she can't make out. Mrs. Flanagan nods and moves toward the wagon, and that's when it happens fast. The burly man abruptly grabs Mrs. Flanagan from behind, a huge hand clamping over her mouth. She struggles, but a second man helps hold her. In the same instant, the lanky man produces a revolver, pointing it directly at the doorway where Nora and the children are visible. Nora's blood turns to ice. Several of the older children scream. Charlie rises from his cot in alarm. Nora quickly throws her arms open, ushering Polly, Sam, and two others behind her, instinctively shielding them. Dr. Thompson steps back inside, now flanked by the mustached man who keeps his gun trained forward. The doctor's pleasant mask has dropped completely. His voice, when he speaks, is cold and devoid of pretense. Everyone remain calm. No one will be harmed if you do exactly as we say. What are you doing? Nora stammers, her heart hammering so loudly she thinks it might burst. Outside, Mrs. Flanagan is being bound and gagged. Nora sees it through the slitted door. The matron, God bless her, fights like a wildcat, kicking over a lantern on the ground. The third man curses and stamps out the flame, then strikes her across the face to subdue her. Nora flinches at the sight, tears springing to her eyes. Dr. Thompson's gaze locks onto Nora. Where is the key for the church? He asks her oddly. Nora is confused, shaking her head. He strides to Mrs. Flanagan's carpet bag, which was left inside, rummages, and finds a ring of keys. Satisfied, he tosses it to the lanky man. Take her to the church and lock them in, he orders, motioning to Mrs. Flanagan. The lanky man drags the struggling matron through the mud toward the adjacent church building. Thunder booms, drowning out her muffled cries. Inside the dormitory, the children huddle together on their cots and on the floor. Many are sobbing in fear. Some are still dazed from illness or laudanum, not fully grasping the danger. Charlie has edged closer to Nora, positioning himself as a barrier too. His jaw is set in anger. You can't do this, he growls at Thompson. The burly man with the gun steps forward, jabbing the barrel threateningly toward Charlie's chest. Shut up, boy, or you'll be first to get hurt. Charlie goes pale, but holds his ground. Dr. Thompson raises a hand to his accomplice. Easy. No need for violence. Yet. He then addresses the children, tone almost businesslike. Listen to me and listen well. You are coming with us. We have buyers waiting who will give you good work, better than whatever pretend families you are heading to. A collective whimper of confusion and horror ripples through the kids. Buyers? Work? Nora's mind reels. The doctor continues, each word slicing the air. You've all been given away once already, haven't you? Think of this as another kind of adoption. The difference is these people paid a pretty price ahead for strong young workers, and they won't be fussing about sending you to school or church. But if you behave, you'll be fed and sheltered. If not, he lets the implication hang. Nora feels Polly clutching her skirt from behind, trembling. Little Sam peers around Nora's hip, eyes huge with terror. Rage boils up in Nora, overtaking her fear. "You're selling us!" she cries, voice cracking. "We are not yours to sell." Dr. Thompson meets her gaze without emotion. "You're not mine, true. But you're also not the cherished little innocents Mr. Carson imagines. To the world, you're just abandoned street urchins, surplus children nobody wanted. Why not put you to good use where you're needed?" His words are razor sharp. Nora recalls the newspaper line sold like cattle, and here it is, coming true in the most brutal way. Outside, the rain intensifies, drumming on the roof like 100 frantic fists. Dusk is approaching, making the interior dim and ghostly in the lantern light. The burly gunman takes a coil of rope from his coat. Dr. Thompson nods toward the nearest child. It happens to be Hector, the sickly boy of 10 lying on a cot. "Start with him. Bind their hands so they can walk, but not run." Hector weakly resists as the man hauls him up and ties his wrists in front with rough hemp. The other children erupt in renewed cries. Some try to back away, but there is nowhere to go, only a corner that they crowd into, like panicked lambs. Charlie lunges to stop the man, but Dr. Thompson swiftly pulls a small pistol from his medical bag and levels it at Charlie. Crack! The pistol fires, and a deafening report echoes in the low room. Charlie yelps and falls back, clutching his ear. Thompson intentionally missed by a hair, a warning shot. The bullet embedded in the wall, splinters rain onto the floor. Silence, except for sobs and the rain and ringing ears. Dr. Thompson's face twists in annoyance. Now that was unnecessary. No more heroics, children. He glances at Nora, who stands frozen in fury and despair. "And you, girl, you have fire. I see that. But if you want your little brother to survive this, you'll do as you're told." At his gesture, the gunman moves to tie Nora's hands. She almost resists, almost scratches and fights, but Sam's frightened face holds her. If she's struck down or worse, what happens to Sam? With tears of helpless rage, she allows the man to bind her wrists. They yank Sam from her arms and tie him too, none too gently. Nora bites back a scream as Sam cries out for her. "I'm here! I'm here, Sammy!" she calls, forced to stand apart now. One by one, the children are bound. The goons are rough with it, clearly impatient to be gone before the storm passes or any alarm is raised. Within minutes, the 18 or so orphans are roped together in a human chain, tethered wrist to wrist. Nora counts in a daze. There are 17 of them now. 17 children and 2 armed men and 1 monstrous doctor. She realizes with a jolt, earlier they had 18 kids left behind. Who is missing? She scans faces quickly despite the chaos. It's Polly. Polly is not in the line. Nora's heart nearly stops. In the confusion, Polly must have slipped away. Perhaps when the shot went off. Nora remembers Polly was just behind her before, but after the gunfire, Nora had shut her eyes a moment in terror. Maybe Polly darted off. She prays the girl found a hiding spot. Dr. Thompson and the men haven't noticed yet amidst the crying and tying. Polly is a tiny slip of a girl. If she's clever enough to stay put until these fiends leave, maybe she can later free Mrs. Flanagan or fetch help. Hope. A tiny ember glows in Nora's chest. She catches Charlie's eye. He has realized it too. But neither dare look around, obviously. Lightning flashes, illuminating the barren doorway. The lanky man returns from locking up Mrs. Flanagan, shouting over the storm. "We best move now. This weather's cut the visibility. Good cover." He notices the line of bound children and smirks. "Hell of a haul. We'll fill both wagons." Dr. Thompson speaks up. Load them into the second wagon. First wagon is for those who fetch the highest price. The older boys and any sturdy ones. He points directly at Charlie, James, and two other 12-year-olds, plus Hector, despite his condition, and, to Nora's alarm, Sam. That one's too young, protests the lanky man, pointing at Sam. Didn't the buyer in Galena say no infants? Dr. Thompson shrugs, a cruel grin curling. The mines in Galena can always use a spare trapper boy. 8 isn't too young to open ventilation doors in a mine, and if he's too weak, he won't last long enough to complain. Nora's stomach lurches. A mine? They mean to send Sam to the lead mines. Those dark, dangerous pits in southeast Kansas. She's heard whispers of them from laborers. Children in mines often died of exhaustion or worse. A choked sob escapes her lips. Sam. Innocent Sam. Underground in darkness. She cannot bear it. Before she can think, Nora drops to her knees, ignoring the ropes biting her wrists. She grasps for Dr. Thompson's trouser leg in desperation. Please, she begs, rain and tears streaming down her face. Don't take him. He's been sick. He can't work. Please, let him stay with me. I'll do anything. The doctor looks down at her as one might look at a mangy dog. He nudges her chin up with the barrel of his pistol until she's looking him in the eye. Anything you say? Nora nods frantically, willing to sell her soul at that moment if it spares Sam. Thompson's eyes travel over her. She's soaked, shivering, arms tied. But she is a comely girl on the verge of womanhood, despite the hardship. He considers. Perhaps I have a use for a girl with spirit, but not now. He motions to the gunman. Put her in wagon 1 with the valuable stock. I'll decide later. It's not mercy, not really. The way he said it raises her goose flesh. But if it keeps Sam by her side, she'll take it. They shuffle Nora and Sam and the selected others toward the first wagon. The rest, mostly younger or weaker children, are herded to the second wagon like lambs. Nora scans their faces. Most stare numbly, in shock. One child cries for Mrs. Flanagan softly, another retches from fear over the side of the wagon. It is a vision of hell. Children being loaded into wagons in the middle of a storm, lightning cracking the sky, bound and weeping. Nora commits every detail to memory, as if by sheer witness she can give their plight reality and not let it vanish into the dark. Polly still has not been found. None of the men mention her. Likely they miscount in haste. With 17 tied up, they assume that's all. Nora silently prays for Polly. Stay hidden, little one. Stay safe. If one child escapes, maybe this horror can be exposed. The wagons lurch into motion, wheels slogging through mud. Dr. Thompson takes the reins of the lead wagon himself. The gunmen ride alongside on horseback now. They leave the mission behind without a backward glance. Heavy rain obscures everything beyond a few yards. The road is a mere pair of ruts through endless grassland. Night falls fully, black and starless, only lit by sporadic electric flashes overhead. Nora huddles in wagon 1, clutching Sam to her chest as best she can with tied hands. The wagon bed has no cover. Rain drenches them. Charlie and the older boys sit grimly, teeth chattering. One of them, James, whispers, "We have to jump. We have to try to escape." But another boy mutters that the armed riders would shoot them down before they got far. Charlie says nothing, but he catches Nora's eye and gives a slight nod toward Sam. Nora understands. He's telling her he'll help protect Sam, if it comes to it. In wagon 2 behind, the younger kids wail intermittently, their cries whipped away by the wind. Nora's heart breaks thinking of their terror. Where will these monsters take them? She overheard mention of Galena. That's a mining town on the Kansas-Missouri border, far to the southeast, and perhaps other buyers elsewhere. They might scatter the children so no one ever finds them together. It dawns on Nora with despair that Mr. Carson and the others in Concordia might never find a trace of them. The doctor's scheme was fiendishly well-timed, using a fake illness. Was it fake? Nora suspects Thompson poisoned them lightly himself to create this scenario. Perhaps something in those sandwiches or in the laudanum, given his forethought, to separate them from protection. The orphan train would arrive in Concordia missing more than half its children, and Carson would have only the doctor's word and perhaps a forged explanation for their absence. Indeed, at that very moment in Concordia's town hall, families were gathering eagerly, unaware that 18 children who were supposed to arrive are delayed. Carson likely wired that illness struck, and they had to stop. But when no further word comes, what then? The thought fuels Nora's resolve. If she survives this, she will make sure the world knows what happened, even if she has to carve it in stone herself. Hours grind by, the storm eventually passes, leaving only a drizzle and distant thunder. The air turns cool. Some children in Wagon 2 have fallen silent, asleep or too weak to cry. On Wagon 1, Sam drifts in and out of feverish sleep in Nora's arms, whimpering occasionally for their mother. Nora strokes his sodden hair and hums the lullaby again under her breath, voice quavering. Near midnight, the convoy halts at a crossroads by a grove of cottonwood trees. The clouds part enough for a sliver of moon to give light. Dr. A. Thompson speaks with the riders in low tones. The children are not untied, but the men allow them to stretch their legs by the wagons under watch. One man refills a canteen from a creek and gives each child a sip of water. Nora's wrists are raw and bleeding beneath the ropes. Many of the children's are. She flexes her numb fingers and notices Charlie eyeing the tree line. Perhaps he's thinking what she is. Could someone slip away under cover of darkness? But with riders and presumably the doctor's pistol still handy, it might be suicide. While the men are distracted, watering the horses, Charlie inches toward Nora and whispers, "Polly got away." Nora nods subtly. "We have to believe she'll find help." Charlie's young face hardens beyond his years. "I'll kill that doctor," he whispers fiercely. And Nora doesn't doubt he means it if given the chance. She gently touches his arm with bound hands. "We need to stay alive first." The men break up their discussion. Dr. Thompson approaches Wagon 2, and to Nora's confusion, he lifts out two of the smallest children, both just toddlers around age 3 or 4. One is barely conscious from fear or drugs. The other starts crying for Mom again. The doctor hands these two to the mustached gunman. "You know what to do," he says quietly. The man looks uneasy but nods and carries the toddlers away into the cottonwoods. Nora watches, perplexed. A few minutes later, the man returns alone, fastening his coat, face emotionless. The toddlers are gone. Realization strikes Nora like a physical blow. They've been left behind, or worse. But she clings to the small hope that maybe the man simply left them tied to a tree to be retrieved later by chance. No, a cold inner voice says. He didn't leave them alive. They were too young to be of use, too young to survive this journey. He likely silenced them in the easiest way and left their small bodies in the dark woods. A silent sob convulses Nora. She turns and retches painfully into the grass, nothing coming up but bile. Charlie's face is white as bone, tears carving paths in the dirt on his cheeks. They dare not speak of it, but everyone knows. The men have just culled the cargo. Under the apathetic gaze of the stars, the diminished group is loaded back up. Nora sends a mental prayer for those tiny souls and steels herself. I will not let Sam die. I will not let any more die, if I can help it. A fierce, clear determination crystallizes in her heart. She begins subtly working at the wet ropes on her wrists. The rain has loosened the fibers a bit. Her small hands, slick with mud and blood, twist and pull. The wagons continue through the night. By the gray pre-dawn light, they approach a small rail junction, likely a freight loading point along a spur line. Rusting silos and a few shacks stand sentinel. There is a train car on the siding, coupled to a locomotive belching steam. Nora's pulse quickens. Are they transferring to a train? It appears so. A lone boxcar stands with its door open. A railway man, or someone dressed as one, waves to them, probably bribed or in league, Nora figures. The plan must be to use the regular freight network to disperse the children, easier than wagons over long distances. It's ingenious in its evil. No one would question a few extra freight items or some children accompanied by an official-looking adult on a train. They stop by the boxcar. The riders dismount. Dr. Thompson climbs off the wagon and stretches, rubbing his lower back. Get them on board. Quickly now. Sun will be up soon, he commands. The children are prodded out of the wagons, stumbling from stiff limbs and fatigue. They're being directed up a ramp into the boxcar like cattle. Nora notices with a jolt that there are a few other children already inside. Perhaps victims from another scheme, or local orphans the doctor scooped. A couple look to be teenagers even, already sullen and resigned, chained to a wall ring. Nora's group huddles inside the dank car. The air smells of hay, oil, and fear. The men untie the travel ropes, but immediately start shackling ankles in pairs with chains. Nora's wrists are freed, but before she can feel relief, a cold iron cuff snaps around her ankle, linking her to Sam's. They lock others similarly, effectively pairing each older child with a younger to slow any escape. Charlie is linked to Hector, who can barely stand, James to another smaller boy, and so on. It's a cruel tactic. Any swift movement could drag a weaker child and hurt them. The railway man shouts something about needing to depart. Dr. Thompson takes one last look at his captives. His eyes rest on Nora. She glares back with all the hatred she can muster. To her surprise, he gives a slight courteous nod, as if acknowledging a worthy adversary, then jumps down and slides the boxcar door closed with a resounding clang, plunging them into gloom. Moments later, the locomotive whistle blows, and they jerk into motion. The train is moving, taking them further away into God knows what darkness. Inside the boxcar, when they're sure none of the kidnappers are immediately present, some children break down, sobbing freely. Others sit stunned, silent. Charlie immediately goes to the door seam and tries to peer out, but it's sealed tight. Only slivers of light beam through cracks in the wood slats. Nora cradles Sam, who is whimpering and coughing. He's parched and burning up again. There's no water now, nothing to comfort him with. She hums and rocks him gently, even as her own mind races on how to escape. They have to get off this train. Across from her, in a shaft of dawn light, she sees one of the unknown older girls, perhaps 15, making the sign of the cross repeatedly and muttering a prayer. Another child just curls into a fetal ball on the straw-covered floor, eyes glassy. Charlie returns and kneels by Nora. We might get a chance if they slow for a hill or curve, he whispers. or if the train stops again. He shows her something in his palm, a small shard of metal, maybe a nail or scrap, that he must have pocketed at the mission, or on the wagon. "I'll try to pick these locks," he says, nodding at the shackles. This lifts Nora's heart a bit. Charlie, resourceful street boy, might have the skills. She shifts to hide his actions from view in case there's any peek hole the captors could use. Charlie starts working on the simple padlock of Nora and Sam's chain first. It's slow going with the crude tool. Meanwhile, Nora softly encourages the others. "They can't watch us in here now. If we free ourselves, we might rush them next time that door opens." Some nod, a glint of hope returning. James flexes his legs, testing his chain's slack. The older girl wipes her tears and comes closer to help Charlie by giving tension on the shackle. Minutes stretch. The steady click-clack of the train on rails is a cruel reminder of time slipping away. They might be an hour or two from wherever the doctor intends to deliver them, perhaps Galena or another way station. They must act fast. At last, with a soft snick, the padlock on Nora and Sam's ankle chain pops open. Nora exhales sharply in relief. She immediately checks Sam. He's half conscious. So she gently lays him in a corner on some straw, free of the chain. Now Charlie tackles the next set. One by one, with trembling fingers and steely concentration, he works the lock of each pair. Nora and the older girl rub feeling back into the children's swollen ankles as soon as they're released and shush them to keep calm. They are down to the last lock when the train suddenly begins to brake. The squeal is ear-splitting in the boxcar. Children lose balance and topple as momentum shifts. Charlie curses under his breath. The jolt made him drop the metal shard. Nora frantically pats the straw. She finds it, thank heavens, and hands it back. The train is coming to a stop, maybe an intersection or the destination. No time left. Charlie manages to spring the final lock just as they feel the boxcar door latch begin to clatter from outside. Quickly, Nora and Charlie motion everyone. Play still chained. It's a silent communication, but the children understand. They drape the loose chains over their ankles and remain in their huddled positions, pretending to still be secured. The door slides open. Daylight floods in, dazzling them. Dr. Thompson stands there with two new men, likely the buyers. One is dressed in a miner's coveralls, face smudged with soot. He eyes the children with an appraising glint. The other is a thin, fox-faced man in a town suit, perhaps an agent for a workhouse or worse. "All right, let's get them separated," Thompson is saying. He hops into the car, boots crunching straw. The boxcar is apparently at a siding in the middle of nowhere. Nora glimpses only scrubland and a water tower, maybe the outskirts of a mining camp. The miner points. "We'll take 6. All boys, age 8 to 12, as agreed." The thin man says, "And I will take the older girl and those 2 lads for the textile mill." Nora's heart drums. They are dividing them up right here. Dr. Thompson moves to enforce the division. He approaches Charlie first, grabbing him by the collar. "Up you go, boy. You're going with Mr. Harris to the mines." Charlie shoots a look at Nora. She subtly nods. It's now or never. As Thompson turns to shove Charlie towards the door, Charlie suddenly twists and bites down hard on Thompson's wrist. The doctor howls in pain. In that split second, Nora launches herself from the ground at the doctor's legs with every ounce of strength. She hits, knocking him off balance. "Now!" she screams. All hell breaks loose in the boxcar. The children, no longer chained, swarm like angry bees. James and another boy tackle the thin buyer at the door, sending him tumbling off the car. The miner shouts and tries to back out, but two of the older girls claw at his face. Dr. Thompson recovers enough to grab Nora by her hair, yanking her backward. But Charlie lunges and locks his arms around the doctor's neck from behind. They crash to the floor grappling. Thompson's pistol skitters from his coat onto the floorboards. Nora, eyes blazing, snatches up the gun. Time slows as she finds herself aiming it at the man who orchestrated their nightmare. He has thrown Charlie off and now stares into the barrel of his own weapon held by a 14-year-old girl. For the first time, Nora sees fear in his steely eyes. How many lives has he destroyed? How many children have been sold like cattle because of him? Her finger trembles on the trigger. Behind her, commotion continues. The miner has fled. The buyer is limping away, screaming for help. Some children have jumped from the car and run into the brush. But Nora stands frozen in this moment of reckoning. Dr. Thompson opens his mouth, perhaps to plead or to curse. A small hand reaches up and touches Nora's wrist. It's Sam. He woke and crawled to her side, pale but determined. "Nora, don't," he whispers, tears in his eyes. It's unclear if he means don't shoot or don't risk becoming like that monster. Nora's eyes overflow. She wavers, the weight of the gun immense. In her mind, she hears Mrs. Flanagan's gentle voice. "We'll watch over you all every mile to Kansas." They were supposed to be protected, to find kindness at journey's end, not to become killers on a blood-stained boxcar. In the distance, the shrill whistle of another train or perhaps a responding shout signals danger for the kidnappers. Dr. Thompson glances toward it, then back at Nora with a sneer creeping onto his face, despite the gun. He lunges at her, thinking her hesitation is weakness. The pistol erupts with flame and thunder. Nora's shot catches Thompson in the shoulder. He spins and collapses against the wall, stunned. Nora herself is shocked. She fired almost reflexively as he charged. The recoil numbs her hands. The gun tumbles from her grip. Sam yells and clutches her as smoke fills the car. Thompson is down, but not dead. He groans, clutching his bleeding shoulder, eyes wide in disbelief. Charlie scrambles to Nora's side, eyes darting. He sees the doctor still moving and makes to grab the gun again, but Nora stops him. She looks at the doctor, meeting his gaze one last time. In a voice ragged but strong, she tells him, "If you ever touch another child, I will finish what I started." Dr. Thompson's face twists, whether in pain or hatred, or both. Before he can reply, distant voices and running footsteps signal the approach of help, or perhaps more of his goons. Either way, Nora doesn't care to stay. "Go, everyone out!" she cries. The remaining children who haven't fled pour out of the boxcar. Some scatter into the scrub, others follow Nora's lead as she jumps down, pulling Sam with her. Charlie and James half-drag Hector, who is limping, between them. The older girl helps carry a younger one. They don't know this land, but it doesn't matter. They run. Run from the train, from the man writhing in the boxcar, from all of it. Nora stumbles through rocks and sagebrush, Sam in her arms. The sky above is growing light in the east with approaching morning, the first sunrise of their freedom. Behind them, a few gunshots pop, perhaps Dr. Thompson's men shooting wildly or someone giving chase, but none come close. The children keep running until their lungs burn and their legs threaten collapse. At last, they reach a ridge where they pause, panting. Below, the scene is partially visible. The train has not moved. Figures dot the area. A horseman gallops in pursuit but veers off, likely searching in the wrong direction. The miner and buyer are arguing heatedly by the tracks, and more people, drawn by the noise, seem to be arriving from a distant cluster of buildings. Could be the mining camp. It's chaos back there. Nora sinks to her knees, cradling Sam. He's conscious, but exhausted, and rests his head on her shoulder. One by one, the other children gather around Nora in a half-circle, awaiting guidance. Charlie, James, Hector, wincing. The older girl, she introduces herself shakily as Rose. And 6 others who stayed together. In total, 10 of them have regrouped here. A few others fled in different directions. Nora hopes they'll find safety, too. "What now?" Rose whispers. They all look to Nora. Despite being only 14, she has become their anchor through this nightmare. Nora's mind races. They need shelter, food, and to find Mrs. Flanagan if possible. She and Polly might still be back at the mission or have gotten free. Concordia can't be terribly far. Perhaps a day's journey north or west. If they can reach a town or farm without running into the kidnappers, they might find someone to help. A slender boy named Thomas speaks up, voice quavering. My uncle is in Kansas City. Maybe we can get word to him." Another says, "We should find the sheriff," Charlie interjects bitterly. "And tell him what? That some fancy doctor sold us? Who'd believe street kids like us over men with money?" He has a point. But perhaps the physical evidence, their condition, the shot doctor if he's caught, plus Mrs. Flanagan's testimony if she's alive, will be undeniable. Nora stands, drawing strength from the very earth beneath her. We need to get to Concordia, she decides. That's where Mr. Carson and the others will be. They'll be looking for us. I know it. She briefly explains to the children who don't know. Carson is the agent who brought them a good man, she believes, who must be sick with worry now. If they can reach him or local law, they have a chance. They agree to try for Concordia. Rose thinks she remembers the general direction from the train's path. The rising sun to their right means east. Concordia was westward, so they turn their backs to the sun and begin a cautious trek northwest through the scrubland, avoiding roads for now. It's a weary, painful journey. Most are barefoot or in torn shoes. Sam develops a cough as the morning chill clings. Nora carries him when he falters, though her own feet bleed. Charlie leads the way, face set in fierce determination. Not one child complains. A steely resolve binds them together now. By midday, they reach a dirt road and follow it, hiding when a cart passes, fearful it might be the enemy. That night, they sleep huddled under a haystack at an abandoned homestead, sharing warmth and whispering encouragement. Nora keeps watch under the brilliant blanket of Kansas stars, thinking of Polly and Mrs. Flanagan. Did Polly get help? Are they safe? In her pocket, she still has the orphanage handbill, now soggy and torn. She smooths it out and vows, "This isn't how our story ends. We will be more than lost names in a ledger." 2 days later, just as their meager strength threatens to give out, they crest a hill and see the welcome sight of telegraph poles and church steeples. A town. A battered sign by the road reads, "Concordia, 2 miles. Relief and joy well up." They've made it. Dragging themselves into Concordia in the late afternoon light, they cause a minor sensation. Locals gape at the sight. A band of ragged, dirty children, some injured, led by a teenage girl with fire in her eyes. Within minutes, kindly townsfolk rush to help. A woman wraps Nora in a shawl. A farmer lifts Sam onto a wagon, covering him with a blanket. Questions fly. "Who are you? What happened?" Nora's throat is dry, voice cracked, but she answers as steadily as she can. We were on the orphan train. We escaped. Bad men took us. Please, our friends are still missing." A clamor arises. They've all heard about the orphan train that arrived days ago missing children, and the frantic search Mr. Carson and the sheriff launched. Word is telegraphed immediately to Carson and the authorities that survivors have walked into town. Within the hour, Mr. Henry Carson arrives at the Concordia Constable's office where the children have been brought. His face is etched with worry and guilt, and when he sees Nora, Sam, and the others alive, he breaks down in tears. "I'm sorry, Mo. I'm so sorry," he chokes out, kneeling to embrace Sam, then Nora, like a father who nearly lost his family. Nora, who has tried to be so strong, finally allows herself to cry freely in his arms. They recount the horror, haltingly taking turns when one voice falters. The sheriff listens, jaw clenched in anger as details emerge. The false doctor, the wagons, the children left to die. The room falls silent when Nora describes finding the skulls in the field decades later, connecting the dots. But that part is still to come. For now, they focus on rescuing those still unaccounted. To their astonishment and joy, Mrs. Flanagan and Polly enter the office mid-explanation, both battered, but alive. Turns out brave Polly indeed hid and later freed Mrs. Flanagan from the mission church. They walked miles to reach a farm and raise the alarm. Mrs. Flanagan has bruises on her face and tears in her eyes as she envelops her charges. It's a tearful reunion of the survivors. Over the next days, pauses ride out. Dr. Thompson, wounded, was found and arrested by a local deputy at the mining spur. Under pressure, and after miners discovered 2 small graves by the cottonwoods, he and his henchmen are charged with child trafficking and murder. It becomes a regional scandal. Newspapers scream headlines about the orphan train tragedy. One paper calls him a fiend incarnate exploiting the innocent, and public outrage forces an inquiry into how such a thing was allowed to happen. Not all the stolen children are immediately recovered. A few remain missing for years, a haunting statistic in dusty records. But most are eventually found and reunited in Concordia, either through the law or by their own wits. Each has scars, visible or not, that will take a lifetime to heal. Autumn, 1943. A farmhouse outside Concordia. The wind rustles fields of dry corn stalks as the sun sets red over the Kansas plains. An elderly woman with silver-streaked hair stands from her rocking chair on the porch. In her gnarled hands, she holds a faded orphanage handbill from 1888, her own keepsake of that fateful journey. Her name is Nora Hurley, though it's long since become Nora Williams after marriage. Surrounding her are faces filled with love, her adult children and grandchildren, visiting to hear Grandma Nora's stories. Tonight at last, she told them the true tale of the orphan train that never arrived, of the 36 children, including herself at 14, who left New York full of hope and met darkness on the plains. She spoke of terror and courage, of dear Mrs. Flanagan and brave little Polly, of Charlie and the others who fought like lions to save each other. She wept for those who didn't survive, the unnamed little ones, lost to the prairie soil, now given a voice in her tale. One grandson, barely 8, the same age Sam was then, tugs her sleeve. "Grandma, what happened to the bad doctor? Did they hang him?" Nora looks out at the coming twilight. Dr. Gerald Thompson was sentenced to life in federal prison, she explains quietly, but vanished from all official records a few years in, likely killed in a prison brawl, though rumors said he bribed his way out and lived under an alias. Some truths, she tells the wide-eyed child, we never fully learn. Her granddaughter, with Nora's own fierce eyes, asks, "And the others? Charlie, Sam, Polly, did they stay here in Kansas?" Nora smiles gently. "Sam, dear Sam, grew up happily on a Kansas farm adopted by a loving couple, the same farmers whose haystack sheltered them. They insisted on taking Sam and Nora in. He later became a school teacher, dedicating his life to protecting children as fiercely as Nora protected him. Polly was adopted by Mrs. Flanagan herself, who never left Concordia and helped establish new safety protocols for placing out children, ensuring no orphan train rider would ever be overlooked or unprotected again. Charlie, spirited Charlie, he ran off to join the cavalry at 16, fudging his age, seeking justice on the wild frontier, and eventually became a lawman in Oklahoma. They all stayed in touch, a self-made family bound by trauma and triumph. As for Nora, she found purpose in speaking for those who were lost. She wrote letters, gave testimony, made sure the world knew that some orphan train children did not simply disappear without a trace. They were taken. Her advocacy helped push states like Kansas to enact stricter laws and oversight on child placements. And in time, she healed, especially thanks to a good man who loved her, her late husband John, a farmer, and the family they built together in these once terrifying plains. The last light fades. Nora's family drifts inside, leaving her on the porch with her memories. She gazes east, imagining she can still see that old rail line where it all happened. In her mind, she hears the distant echo of a train whistle, mournful and long, carrying the voices of the children whose fate remained a mystery. Not all were as fortunate as she. Some names remain unaccounted in dusty archives, unsolved. Nora steps off the porch and walks a few paces into the field, the autumn chill nipping at her. Here, under an endless Kansas sky, she does something she hasn't in years. She closes her eyes and lets the past speak. She can almost feel small hands clasped in hers, the weight of a child leaning on her shoulder. "I remember you," she whispers to the ghosts of the plains. "I remember you all." A wind sighs through the corn, almost like a collective exhale of gratitude. The orphan train that never arrived did not vanish into nothing after all. Its story lives on, carried by those who survived and those who dared to remember. And as Nora turns back to the warm light of her home, a single tear traces down her cheek. It's not only a tear of sorrow for what was lost, but of triumph for what was saved. The truth. A dark chapter buried in the plains has finally been brought into the light, ensuring that the 36 children lost so long ago will never be forgotten again.